Okay, so continuing on to editing photos, we have, like as you saw previously, we used Lightroom and we did a lot of stuff into Lightroom, uh, and also talk about like what is the benefit of Lightroom in a sense. And also now we're going to go and do probably the same thing as into Photoshop, if you happen to have that software, because that one is a very uh, the most popular photo edits in the world, I would say. The thing is just that some parts into Photoshop is just that you can work onto a photo and it's kind of layers. You have to work in layers. And there's other parts where you have to use some filters or you have to use some tools. And then these are not like into Lightroom. They are permanent. So an example would be like this over here. If you use a crop tool and you select like C onto your keyboard, or if you move onto the toolbar, you see the crop tool. And then this is the first part that we said, like always try to crop your photos. You can actually go in, and I'm just gonna select, I'm gonna delete this, well, clear. And you can just select an area. It doesn't matter what size that you want. You can actually just put it wherever you need. In this case, I want to keep this pose, so it's kind of a framing. And I want to make her like close to the rule of thirds. And when you look at the cropped in this one, it's just that what's going to happen, I'm going to just activate my layers so you can see. So this is layers. And then if you press on to enter, then it's going to be all the other information that was out there, it's gone. So it's really nice to work with Photoshop, but there are some limits, as I just mentioned. It's just that if you do a crop and you save that, you just lost from the original photos what you were working on. So sometimes it's good to duplicate the photo before or have another copy of the photo before you start to do some photo edits. I'm just going to use the Control Z just to show you some other parts of Photoshop. So in here, when you're going to do other edits, it's good practice to just duplicate this layer first. So in the sense that if you want to do onto the keyboard, the shortcut is going to be Control J on PC and Command J on Mac. So if you click and drag it to the new layer, you see you have a background layer over here. Okay, but the crop tool is always going to work and it's going to crop everything else. So just to show you, just press enter. There you go. So you see like everything has got changed. So now you can actually just also take the crop tool and limits to what size you want. In a sense that if you want to keep the same ratio, as you remember in Lightroom, I showed you that you can keep the same ratio as 4:6 as far as printing photos. Usually that's what you want to keep. And in here it's the same thing. You can actually just put it in, or sometimes if you go into that little triangle, you have like rectangular marquee who are already set for you. The thing is just that you have to be careful because some, like this photo, I'll show you the problem with this one, okay? So I'll go in here just to make sure I don't make changes. I go to image size. You see this one is already 13 inch by 10 inch, but it's only 7:2 resolution. So that's what's the problem, is just that this one is usually when you shoot into camera, you would have like maybe 240 of resolution. So that will limit what you can do for as cropping. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I go back to crop and I go, let's say I want to have a 6 inch by 4 inch. And usually the computer is going to take in account what is the resolution. Now if I go like that, you notice it's going to be 13 inch by 10 inch on height. So if I click here and I start to drag, oh, it limited the actual height, so which is really good. But onto the side, like onto the width, it was supposed to be only 6 inch. This is like 13.33 inch, so it didn't quite work. So those are things that you have to be careful when you're using those presets. If I go in here and I say I want a 4:6, and in the 4:6, in this case, it's going to be width 4 for sure. So if I click and drag, it's kind of like, you see, it limited the actual width, and then the height was supposed to be 6 inches. And even if I go back, let's go back to this one, and I go like over here and starts to drag, this is supposed to be like 10 inch, and it doesn't work. So you have to be careful, okay? Some will work, some won't work. So anyways, going back to the final product, is just that you can crop it. Oops. First of all, I'll clear this. And then you just crop it the way you like, okay? And then obviously remove the information that you don't need. So if this would be like perfect rule of thirds, because you see the eye, right on the eyes, and you press enter. And then when you're done with this, you can go to File, Save As, and you want to choose to have a JPEG. And then you save that. And that's when you want to print. And when you're going to go to the printing, you will have a choice wherever you're going to send them to print. And then you'll see right from the actual screen that if it's going to fit everything or if it's not going to fit everything. So the cropping in Photoshop is kind of like permanent, but it's just that it's a good, like sometimes you don't need to have that information elsewhere. So you can do that. So hopefully that helps. And we'll move on to the next one. Will be like removing distractions that we did like into Lightroom, but in this case, we can go even further and with better tools.